Hi, my name's Emily Cerda. I'm a microbiome specialist here with Tiny Health. Today I'm going to talk to you about protein digestion capacity in the Tiny Health microbiome shotgun gut test. So on the main results page for a patient, I'm going to go into the See All Metrics button. And then from here, I'm just going to get there quickly by clicking the check mark for digestion and absorption markers on the left-hand side here. So in a previous video, I talked about these markers for fiber, complex sugar, and vitamin production capacity. You're welcome to check that out in your practitioner resources. Today, I'm going to talk to you about the protein breakdown capacity section because this is a little bit more complex. So if you've seen the other video, you know that these are functional markers of the microbiome's ability to produce or to do these functions. So the microbiome's ability to help with protein breakdown is what we're looking at. And we're looking at genes that specifically proteins or enzymes that are coding for the function of the microbes in the gut. Without this capacity, the microbiome really can't execute the function. So here in protein breakdown capacity, we have 5 metrics. The first one is protein breakdown. So protein breakdown, if I click into it, this is kind of the opposite of the fiber and the complex sugar breakdown capacities, where for those in the large intestine, we wanted to have those genes. So the green zone or the optimal zone for the metric was high. Here for protein breakdown, you'll notice that it is on the low end instead of the high end. And that's because if you think about it, this is looking at genes in the microbiome that are helping with the breakdown of protein. Protein digestion should be finished in the small intestine, and it should not be coming into the large intestine to really ask the microbes for help with its breakdown. When protein comes into the large intestine and needs that breakdown, it tends to ferment. And there are byproducts of that. There are a lot of downstream inflammatory consequences of that protein breakdown. So here for this individual, we do see that this is trending high and out of range. So a few things that I may consider here. First of all, like, is this individual making enough either stomach acid or digestive enzyme itself? So looking at digestive capacity will be important. I think also stress can play a huge role in this. Modern lifestyle can play a huge role in this. So if we're like really busy and eating in the car and, all of the things that we're not able to get parasympathetic to really promote the enzyme production that helps us to break down food. If we're eating running through the kitchen, if we're just stressed out, we're eating as we can, kind of in this survival mode, then you may also notice that that protein breakdown is high. Same with chewing. So another reason where this protein breakdown may be high would be a low fiber diet. So if you consider that fiber actually slows down the transit of everything through the digestive system, it does actually help things to be broken down a little more completely at each step because that transit is slower. So those are an array of things to kind of explore with your patient if they come back with protein breakdown being out of range like this. You'll notice the actions over here. We are focusing on a diversity of foods, plant foods specifically, and fibers to try to slow that transit down because it's really hard to guess from here without patient presentation or patient history as to clues to digestive sufficiency. So if your patient tests more than once, you will always have the metrics listed from where they have come from. Again, you can read about poor protein breakdown here. You can see what if that protein is to ferment in the large intestine, what is going to be created and what may happen under those circumstances. And then down below, species in the sample, these are not species that are necessarily contributing to this issue of elevated protein breakdown in the large intestine, but they are species that are present under those conditions. So we do have to look at this kind of more globally rather than looking at it and saying, well, Bacteroides is the problem. That's not necessarily the case. It is likely more so that we need a little fiber and perhaps some digestive sufficiency. And we need to balance out the roles of these microbiomes or these microbes in the microbiome. Okay, so if I back out, I'm going to go back into the digestion and absorption markers. Remember, I'm going to skip a little bit. We said if protein is fermenting, one of the things that it may create is ammonia. And we do see that happening here. So often I read protein breakdown, ammonia, and branched chain amino acids, all three of them together, because we'll also have increased production or increased genes for the production of branched chain amino acids if protein is fermenting in that large intestine. So I look at those three together. Here, that ammonia is high. And again, you're going to see some fiber inputs over here, also diversity, and then processed meats, because that is a potential, and especially if our digestive sufficiency is off. Okay. Other metrics here to note, the indole-3 propionic acid. This is IPA. And this looks fine in this individual, but just a few pearls about this one. Tryptophan is the precursor to I3PA. And so often we will try to either increase some fiber foods or increase some tryptophan containing foods in order to influence this metric towards the green zone here. Now, because tryptophan is the precursor, this indole-3 propionic acid, um, it is a neuroactive byproduct of tryptophan breakdown. And because of that, it's very involved in gut-brain signaling. And so you may see this trending low when there is some neuroinflammation going on, and maybe that's presenting in your client as well. So again, you can scroll down here, you can see some associations when this is out of range, and then you can click in here to learn more. You can see the key benefits to having good IPA production, and then you can also learn about eating a Mediterranean diet style, eating foods that are rich in tryptophan, like some poultry, some soybeans, some pumpkin seeds, things like that to help increase this. Okay. Back into our digestion and absorption markers. TMA. So TMA, trimethylamine, we can see in this sample is good. Well, apparently for the next result, this has gotten a little bit high. So TMA is something that we actually make from L-carnitine in our diets. And so often when this is increased, I am asking questions about patient diet. Are we eating a lot of animal protein, red meat specifically, anything that would be really high in L-carnitine? The trimethylamine is not necessarily a bad thing. The problem with it is that if it hangs out too long, it becomes oxidized. So if we're not clearing it, it turns into TMAO. And TMAO has a lot of different kind of negative effects, mostly increased inflammation, cardiac issues, diabetes, things like that. So often we are talking about that dietary balance. Is there a lot of animal protein, not a lot of plant fibers? Is there a way to balance those things out? And if that's not the case, and somebody is eating plenty of fiber and they don't seem to be, or they don't have low levels of TMA, they have high levels of TMA, then the next thing I look at is supporting liver for that phase 2 detoxification so that we can help this TMA move along before it becomes oxidized and turns into TMAO as a problem. So thinking in terms of cruciferous vegetables, maybe a sulforaphane, um, sweating, movement, things like that for that phase 2 detox support. Okay, and then the final part of the protein breakdown capacity are those branched chain amino acids. Like I said, when protein breakdown is high, sometimes this one will also trend high. And look, here it is right on the edge. Um, so if protein ferments in the large intestine, it will create these. If your individual's protein digestion capacity metrics look fantastic, and this is just elevated, one question to ask is if they're supplementing. Are they taking, are they working out and taking some kind of a protein supplement that has BCAAs in it? I have seen that shift this to be slightly elevated as well. So we can also see what we make BCAAs from. So like sausage, ice cream, eggs, a lot of different things. And again, sometimes that is about shifting dietary balance and helping there be more plant fibers to offset some of those foods in the diet. It's everything in balance. So hopefully this is helpful. If you haven't looked at the other digestion and absorption markers in the practitioner resource area, please do. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us.